not able to make this workshop. So thank you all for joining us. This should be a lot of fun. And I want to thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I want to thank Carl for leading us here. We're going to be doing a couple things in this session. So first of all, Carl is going to provide the musical direction, explaining you all how the song will be sung. I'm hearing a little bit of echo from somebody. So now's a good time for you guys to start. Okay, that's good. All right, Carl will start providing some introduction, direction of the song we're going to be singing. And then afterwards, I'm going to provide you some notes of how to record a good video for inclusion in this project. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Yale Russian Chorus alumni have organized a few of these different virtual recordings now. And it's been a good way for getting people to come together and sing. And I think it's particularly good in this case because we can bring the Kartuli guys and the New Haven Yale Russian Chorus and the alumni all together. I'm pleased to say that just about all the New Haven YRC members are going to be joining us on this project. They are not, most of them will not be joining us today because they're busy auditioning people, but you will see them in the final recording as it comes together. So Carl, I'll hand it over to you. As we go here, we have to manage our microphones, guys. So if you have a question, I will be monitoring the chat window. So you can post a question in chat and I will bring it up, or you could raise your hand. Either way, let us know if you have a question and we will be sure to address it. So Carl, over to you.
Okay, well, thanks for inviting me. This is a really great project, I think, and there's a lot of great history behind this particular hymn and the way that it was brought into the Yale Russian Chorus repertoire and subsequently inspired other people to continue singing Georgian music, the beginning of the Kartuli Ensemble, etc. So, you know, as far as I understand, this was the first one. And it was Bruce Lieberman who met the director of the State Ensemble in 1968, the Georgian State Ensemble, and was so enamored with this particular hymn that he asked the director of the State Ensemble, Anzor Kapsadze, to give him a transcription or a score for it. And Kapsadze hand wrote that transcription. That document should be in some safe archive somewhere. Maybe Bruce has it, but I would love to see it. Anyway, Shen Khar Venakhi, it's also one of the best known and most beloved hymns from the Georgian Divine Liturgy. And it's a hymn to the Virgin Mary. I imagine probably most of us, if not all of us here, know it and maybe have sung it once or a few dozen or 100 times. So there are...
Before we continue, people were asking about that chime. That chime is when people are joining the session. Sorry, once everybody is in, you'll stop hearing that. So but more people are joining it. So a couple minutes more. Anyway, continue, Carl, sorry.
Okay. So there have been many different ideas over the past 100 years, especially about how this hymn or these types of hymns should be performed. And my particular preference is something to, I sort of ascribe to the revivalist aesthetic. which is, it kind of moves away from what was the more sort of exaggerated, westernized approach of having lots of big crescendos and really slow tempos and that sort of thing. That became quite popular in the mid 20th century. And then in the 80s, there were some people who sort of moved back in the direction of, well, this is the liturgy, you know, the primary function of the liturgy is communication. We're speaking with each other, we're speaking with God. So the words should be clear and we should be able to understand them, and not just understand them, but we should believe them. We should mean what we say. So this is also very much in line with my whole mindset behind singing, and you know why we sing. And you know, okay, there's a lot to be said for just making music and making sound, but I think you know, we are speaking with each other, I think, also when we sing. So so we're going to get kind of deeply into the language today of Shen Khar Venakhi, and I don't know if there are others among us out there that speak or understand any Georgian, but I do speak Georgian, and I have to say it's it's pretty darn useful for this particular repertoire. It really does help to understand, and so I'm going to, apart from going over pronunciation and just sort of technical things with the music, I'm also going to cover particular words and phrases that I think should be stressed a little bit, and some of them that should be de-stressed. So let's begin with the first verse, and I'll go over the pronunciation. Shen Khar Venakhi. So the KH is it's pretty it's kind of pretty far back in your throat, like the, you know, it's the guttural KH. It doesn't have to be really heavy. It can be quite light, almost an H, but not really an H. I've got a little bit more guttural to it. Shen Khar Venakhi. Before I go on any further, I'm going to clarify one thing, which is actually surprising to a lot of people that encounter Georgian music or have sung Georgian music sometimes. You know, I've been teaching Georgian music for many, many years now. And in my experience, the thing which more often makes us sound like foreigners or people that don't really speak Georgian is actually the vowels. It's more the vowels than the consonants. The consonants, there are some tricks to the consonants, and we'll get to those too. But Georgians have an extremely limited palette of vowel sounds, and they're all pure with no diphthongs. So anytime you see a vowel, that is a syllable. We're going to go through all of the pure vowels, and also the mystery sixth vowel, which is going to be quite useful to us here. So we have, and I'll get close to the camera so you can see my face, the 5 Georgian vowels, official vowels, and watch my mouth. A, E, I, O, U. So especially in the first 3, there's almost no change with my mouth, my lips, right? They, I think some people might say, you know, it's another manifestation of the Georgians being kind of lazy with their language, but they don't do a lot of shaping with their vowels. So it's really primarily changing the tongue position between A, E, I, and then a little bit of shaping for O and U. And again, no diphthong, so it's not O, but it's just O. The 6th Georgian vowel sound, which we're going to use quite liberally between consonants, is the vowel and that happens between consonants. For example, right on the very first word, we have Shen Khar. Shen Khar Venakhi. So in fact, when we're singing, we're going to put those tiny little, I call them schwas or Georgian schwas. We're going to put those little schwas just ahead of the beat. So if I'm singing the middle voice, which is the easiest to illustrate here, Shen Khar Venakhi. So the schwa is still just ahead of the beat, still on the upper note, right? Shen Khar. And
so, Carl, I've got a couple questions there
yes.
relating to that. So,
Yep.
and this from the standpoint of editing Georgian recordings. So it sounds then as if the consonant like cha in Shen Khar, that should be on the beat. That should not like be before or after.
There's correct? Not really time to get it ahead of the beat.
Yeah.
My general advice is try to have the vowel, whatever the vowel is, try to have that vowel on the downbeat or as close to the downbeat as possible.
And and what you're describing, is this true particularly for sung Georgian, or is it true for equally for speaking? I guess I wonder, is this a matter of musical practice or?
The singing practice reflects the speech. So this is definitely that, you know, you start speaking Georgian and you're going to hear these little schwa sounds all over the place. Okay. It's the thing that allows Georgian people to say words that haven't, you know, what end up being like 7 consonants in a row. So, so going on, we have Shen Khar Venakhi. We're not going to have any little schwas in there. Venakhi. Achlad. Similarly, we could put a little schwa in there, but I'm actually going to say let's not do it. Achlad. Oh, you know what? Maybe there is a little one in there. Achlada. But that one, the da, is really going to be kind of just elided directly to the next vowel. Again, because it's sandwiched between vowels as opposed to in between 2 consonants. Let's talk about the Georgian Q sound. What I use Q. I use Q for the transliteration of this particular Georgian sound. Aqwa vebuli. So the Georgian Q sound is actually not. It's not anything like a K. It is made in the very back of your throat, down where you swallow. I sometimes will call it the gag reflex sound. People want to know how to make this particular sound in Georgian. The easiest way to do it is take 1 or 2 of your fingers and just stick them straight down your throat. And that's how that's the sound. There are two very...
Carl, yep. You know, is that as far back as the Arabic ka, or not quite so far?
It is, yes. Okay. In fact, the Arabic ka is the equivalent aspirated. So the Georgian is non-aspirated. It's the exact same placement, way down in the back where you swallow. However, there's no air coming with it, so just a little touch. Georgians have 2 ways of making this sound commonly. It can be very pronounced, or it can be really a true glottal stop. And you hear this especially in particular configurations of consonants or words. A word like love, sitwaruli, you could very easily say sitwaruli, sitwaruli. And it sounds very Georgian to anybody who's speaking it. Young Georgian children who are learning to speak will say the word frog, bakaki, which has 2 Q's in a row, bakaki, and they will typically say ba'ai, ba'ai. So that gets us through verse 1. Shen Khar Venakhi Achlada wa Vebuli. We're not going to put a schwa on that D, the D of Achlad. We're just going to align it directly to the next A. Next verse. Let's just go through all of the text first, and then I'll talk about shaping, etc. Nor, chi.
Before
Yes?
we go, a question. So the phoneme after the ka in Akbar Baybeli, is it a U or is it a V? How is that pronounced exactly?
I'm sorry, which one now?
So
the V?
The V, yes.
Okay, let's talk about V. So the easiest way for me to explain Georgian V, because they don't have a true V and they do not have a true W. In English, we make a V by putting our upper teeth on our lower lip, b, right? The Georgians do almost that, but they actually don't touch their teeth to the lip. So that's the easiest way, as I could say, just make it a regular V, but actually don't touch your teeth to your lip. And different from a W in that we don't have the shaping, the shaping of the lips, right?
So it's a bilabial fricative. To use
yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Verse 2. Norachi, norachi, chi. Again, we're going to have that little schwa hanging just ahead of the beat. Norachi, etili. Here we have a non-aspirant K. This is, well, for the non-aspirants, for anyone who is unsure about what those are or how they should be done, the way to learn how to do them is to say your words while you're holding your breath, which seems a little bit strange, but let's, if we think about crazy candy corn for Halloween, crazy candy corn, and now if I say crazy candy corn, while I'm holding my breath, I get, so I'm just making that little K sound, but with no air actually coming from my lungs. It's only the air that's left in my mouth that I'm expelling with my tongue. It's very subtle. Ketili actually goes in the direction of a hard G. G, ketili, ketili. Norachi, ketili, edems, shina, nere, guli. Nere, again, we're going to put that little schwa on the R, between the R and the G. Nere, guli. So I'll sing that a little bit. Norachi, ketili. Edem shinane raguli. Okay.
Very good.
Verse 3. Alava suneli samotches amosuli. Samotches amosuli. Al. We're going to put a little one there on the L, just ahead of the beat. Alava suneli. Samotches
Yes. A question that came up, just to reinforce this. So to make sure everybody on the call knows, we are going to be doing all the verses of this song. The Russian chorus in the past has typically skipped a verse or two, but we're doing the whole enchilada this time. So I don't want anyone to be surprised about that.
Okay, I just saw a question here about no schwa between motre, and that is correct. No schwa there. Sa motre. Sa motre. Tre. We can just align them together. Somebody says our score shows hua.
We already talked about
sang.
the difference between the wa and the the
okay.
Georgian, yeah.
Okay.
I'll try my best to keep track of the chat, so you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. Yep. Next verse. So here we have GH. So GH in Georgian is the voiced equivalent of KH. KH we have ch, just with air in the back, and GH is the same but with voice. R, r. And here we have Remertman. Remertman. Remertman shegamko vervina good jobs again right there kebuli. So let me sing that one a little bit.
So with that,
yes.
Like to take example of the jobs. So the beat would then be on the j. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
G
Yes.
is still on the higher,
right.
The previous beat, right?
Right.
The end. And here we're going to have to also, because we have a little bit more stuff ahead of the beat before where the consonant, where the vowel starts, we're going to telegraph it a little bit more. And here we've got two, r, t, and I want them to be slightly separated with those little schwas. So instead of it being a single, we can make sort of little mini subdivisions of the beats there. Veravina jobs kebuli. Good?
Good.
Something that I was going to say there.
While you're thinking of that,
yeah.
I'll get to this in a moment, guys, but we're going to be preparing, or we are preparing a reference recording where you can hear lead trio sing this. And so you will hopefully be hearing them pronounce it to Carl's satisfaction. So that will make it easier for you all. You can just follow along.
I remembered what it was. So it's about the S, that we must remember not to let our own linguistic default logic shape anything that we're saying here. So every time you see S, it is always S, S, S. So, for example, gjobs, there's a tendency sometimes for people to say gjobs, as though it's plural or something in English, right? So it's always S, S. Let's go into the last verse. Da tavit tvisit mze khar da Gabrin vebuli. And that's the word that everybody always makes a big deal out of. Gabrin vebuli. And my advice for everyone is make as little as possible out of it. Just try to get yourself from the first vowel to the next vowel, and try not to make a big deal out of it's going to be in there, and some of us will say it, I will say it, but if you're at all worried about it, just don't worry. Let me sing through that last verse. Da ta vi tui si mazechar da gavratsky nevebuli. Where we have the two T's to consecutively, we're going to align them together and make just one. We're not going to separate them. Tavit tuisit. Okay? Between. So we'll just put one to there. We have basic pronunciation now, I believe, for all of the words.
Good. Alex, you have a question. I don't quite understand it. So why don't you unmute and ask the question yourself? Alex Remington.
Just trying to make sure that I, on that very last line, so penultimate bar, the ga ptskin vebuli, it's in is the vowel on both quarter notes, even though
Yes.
as it looks like the brts is the first note. Okay.
That's correct. E is the vowel for both of those.
The
middle part, yeah.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
And it is in rather than in?
Yes, it is E. Georgians can't say E. E. Well, I've got a plane going overhead here. Okay.
Yeah, we're doing this al fresco, Carl. You're in your wooded glen there, and I'm out on my farm in Hawaii, and we're both getting noise. So everyone else, just bear with us.
Okay. Talking about dynamics and shaping, I'd like to let the text primarily dictate where the ebb and flow of the dynamics go. Shen Khar Venakhi, really I would say the two important words are Shen and Venakhi. Venakhi is the vineyard, Shen is you.
And then let me add here, from a learner's perspective, the word order of Georgian is not too dissimilar from English. So like Shen Khar Venakhi, you are vineyard. So if you're wondering what the words mean, it's probably pretty close to what the translation says.
Yeah, and if people have particular questions, maybe it will be good actually. I'll see if I'll try to do sort of a word for word and send that out so people will have that available.
And the question, someone asking, is the Shen informal? And
yes.
And part of the reason, guys, you may not be aware of this, is that although this is a hymn, who is this addressing? To some degree, this is addressing the Virgin Mary. Is that not true?
That's
Carl?
correct. It is a hymn to the Virgin Mary.
That's right.
Yes.
So we address to her using the informal.
Yes. Akhlad, Akwavebuli. Akhlad is newly. Akwavebuli is blossomed. Georgian does not have any hard and fast rule about syllable stress. So it's really more sort of where syllables tend to be stressed. Typically, if you have a two-syllable word, stress is on the first syllable. Akhlad. Akwavebuli, I would say we're probably going to be heaviest on vebuli. Akwavebuli. Norchi, ketili. Again, we have two words which will both have the stress on the first syllable. Norchi, ketili. Edems, shina, nerguli. So Edems is Eden. Shina is like within. Nerguli is planted or growing. Nerguli. So again, Edems, stress on the first syllable. And this is going to be very subtle, but I just want to give it a sort of a general guidance. Nerguli. I think most of this is actually going to follow pretty naturally with the voicing, right? Alava, suneli, just like the previous verse. Alava is the poplar. Suneli is fragrant. Samotches, samotchesa is in paradise. Samotchesa, samotchesa. I think the stress actually there is still going to be on the first syllable. Samotches. Samotches. And mosuli, again on the first syllable. Mosuli. Gemertman, that's God. May God. Shegamko. In this case, we're going to stress the second syllable. Shegamko. Shegamko. She is like a preverb. And ga is actually g is the marker that's saying you for you. So so here's a place where let's actually pull back a little bit from she, right? Kind of build up a little bit into that, and not heavy, but just build up to that ga. Okay. Vervina. Again on the first syllable. Vervina. Gujobs. One syllable word. Kebuli is praise.
Before you go on,
yes.
So that's the unaspirated K. Is that not right?
No, that's the on Kebuli. That's the aspirate K. That is
that's
the aspirate.
Okay. Right.
Kebuli. Yeah.
Okay. In that case, there's an error in the score.
Oh, is there an apostrophe after that?
We did not put an apostrophe at Kebuli. Should there be an apostrophe there?
There should be no apostrophe, but because that is aspirated. So the system I use is that, right, the apostrophes indicate the non-aspirant.
Ouch. Okay. Everyone be aware that's contrary to what's commonly done. Okay.
Okay.
So, all right.
Yes. Okay, so the last verse is the one which I am most eager to kind of de-stress, because the word da simply means and. So when we start this verse with and, I would prefer for it not to sound like that. But you know, we're leading into something else which is more important. Da tavit, tvisit, mazechar, da. So where we have these das, even though we have quite a bit of value and musical activity there. We're going to kind of relax them, right? Ta, ta, and let's kind of lead into ta. Tavit. In this particular phrase, tavit, ta. I would like for ta to kind of be the where we lean the most. And even though we have movement on vit, tavit, let's back away from it a little bit. And then lean again into tavisit, tavisit. So let me see if I can illustrate this a little bit. Da, ta, vi, tvi, si. Okay. Maze is sun, the sun. Maze, and again, we're going to put that just ahead of the beat. Maze, so that really ze is right on the beat. Maze, har. Both of those words are quite important. Maze, har. You are the sun. Da, again, less important. Just kind of leading us to the final important word. Gapskin vebuli. Zechar da Gabratski nevebuli. All of the voices are going to be gradually pulling back, really sort of easing into that unison with the idea that when we land on the unison, our volume among all three parts is still going to be the same as it was on our individual part, so that we're really pulling it back. Okay. Are there any other questions?
That's great. Any other questions before we move on? Good. So just one thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Louis. I didn't unmute myself quite in time. In the era in which I was part of the group when we learned it in the 70s.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Tom Remington.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Question about not the words here. When I learned it in the 70s, we worked to understand the kinds of halftones that Georgian music has. Instead of a rise to a sharp or a flat, there would be these tones in between. This version is a little simpler, more straightforward, a little more Western, if you will. Is there some thought that we should try to get that kind of in-between note between a normal, flat or sharp note?
In some utopian world, yes. However, for the purposes of making something that really works here with so many people, especially, I think we should keep it pretty Western tuned.
I agree, particularly for virtual chorus. It would be very difficult for us to do microtones. Each person would have their own version of it. So let's stick with the tones in the reference recording, which is in the Western tempered scale. Make sense, Carl?
Yeah, I agree. I would like to say a word about what I'm sure some people are thinking about or wondering, maybe missing some of the ornamentation, these little turns that are in there. So I'd like to speak about what my idea was for this particular performance, what we would do. So very commonly when this music is performed, or music like this, maybe not this particular hymn, but Georgian church choirs these days, many of them are groups of anywhere from 5 to 8 people. And typically there will be one person singing the top voice, one person singing the middle voice, and everyone else is singing the bass part. This allows especially the upper two voices to sometimes do some improvisation, sometimes ornamentation, that sort of thing. There is definitely a tradition of ornamenting, especially the middle voice in this particular hymn. With so many people singing the upper parts, especially the middle part, which has those turns, I decided that it would be best for us to make them as universal and simple as possible for the middle voice. That said, I would still like them to serve their function, and the function of a turn or an ornament is to make something more beautiful, not to be a thing of beauty in itself. With that in mind, rather than trying to make a big deal out of the turns whenever they come up, I would like for us to actually pull back from them and just kind of ease over them and let them be a vehicle which leads us from the previous beautiful note to the next beautiful note. And so, for example, in verse 1, really just kind of almost letting it just float away into nothing. Still very in very clear time, okay? And we can all try to do that together, whoever is singing the middle part.
Before we go on, a couple people are asking you to, one last time, pronounce Gjobs and Gabrskин Vebuli for us.
Veravina Gjobske Gjobs. Okay. Veravina Gjobske, and similarly for the outer parts. Veravina Gjobs, Gjobs. Veravina Gjobs, Gjobs. And the last word again, Gabrtskin Vebuli. Mzechar da Gabrtskin Vebuli. Gabrtskin Vebuli. Once we get to Vebuli, it's fine. Gabrtskin Ve. Again, a little schwa there on that n. Gabrtskin Ve. Gabrtskin Ve.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so regarding ensemble, Carl, so just so you know, for the folks that we have a lot of basses and baritones. We've got a reasonable number of second tenors and a smaller number of first tenors. So my question is, should we encourage second tenors who can do the first tenor part to do it, and likewise baritones take the second tenor part to have more balance, or how do you want to handle that?
I think it's good for us to have a larger number of people on the bottom. Mm-hmm. And I would probably prefer a more equal balance of voices between the upper two parts. It doesn't have to be exactly equal, but you know.
All right, we'll follow up then. So some of you second tenor guys, if you're comfortable on the top part, I would say take it, let me know.
I don't know if I can.
Well, make sure we get it balanced, but we do. I think it's important, given the way the second tenor part and the first tenor part are so close. If they're not balanced, it doesn't have the intended effect.
Louis, the balance is going to change significantly with the young YRC folks joining us later, right?
That's right. We're not talking about the group here. I'm talking about the total roster, which includes the second tenors and first tenors. Absolutely. It's just that as people have been signing up, I've been noting what parts they are singing. I just see we need a rebalance on the first tenor side a bit. So, Carl, if you don't, unless you got some other stuff to go over.
My only other comment / question is concerning breathing. So, as we have it, they are these really long phrases with no group breaths, right? So there may be people among us that can do those things in one breath, and there may be those of us out there that can't. And so it may be, I'm wondering if it might be a good idea for us to actually coordinate and have people communicate with each other who are singing those parts or whatever and say, I'm going to breathe here, I'm going to breathe there.
My guess is that if we know to stagger breathing, we should be okay. I think that the key thing we need to avoid is everybody thinks, oh, Shen Khar Venakhi. That we do not want. Don't breathe in the obvious places, and I think we should be okay.
Okay, because my general practice is, when I'm with people in a group, then I have people on either side of me, and I can hear, oh, he just took a breath. That means I can take a breath. Or, oh, he hasn't had a breath in a while. Maybe I'll catch a breath, and that sort of thing. So,
I think it'll probably balance out. Good. Okay, so I wanted to go over a couple of points regarding the recording process for those of you who are new to virtual chorus recordings and to how we do such recordings with the Yale Russian Chorus alumni. I've got a couple examples to show you. Let me share my screen now. Okay, we are preparing a reference recording that you all can sing against. This is work in progress, but this will give you an idea of what you will ultimately be singing against. So, all right, so a few things there. You heard some strong metronome beats at the beginning. We use those to sync up the voice recordings. So what I would like you all to do, if possible, is let's say you have earbuds like these. What you would do is you would start the recording, let a few of those beats play, and then plug your earphones in. That way we get some of those beats on your recording. That makes it very easy for us to line up the tracks. I think it's particularly important for Georgian music where we've got, syllables that are before, schwas before the beat. We really need those metronome marks so that those of us editing this are totally clear on where the beats are. And I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. You saw there Rekinoshta, as he was recording, setting up there, he actually plugged in and then moved on. You'll see I added subtitles with Carl to help those of us who are not familiar to all 5 verses. And you may have noticed, Carl, that I synced the subtitles with your rests. So in other words, when you follow that, when the subtitles disappear, your singing should also disappear at that point. You will see, if you look at how Ray is set up here, first of all, he's wearing a very nice chocha. So for dress for this piece, my recommendation, unless you disagree, Carl, is if people have a chocha, they should wear it. If people have a Yale Russian Chorus t-shirt, they should wear it. Yale Russian Chorus t-shirts are fine for all occasions, including virtual chorus. And then I think otherwise, my thinking is, if you don't have either of those, then favor either white or dark to match the white and dark color of the chocha. Does that make sense to you, Carl?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. So as soon as we get all 3 parts covered, we will post this on YouTube and send it out. The other thing to note is that we're setting, the singers are going to appear in portrait layout on the screen, as you see Ray here. So we can all see everybody's chochas. That means when you do your recording, it's got to be such that we can present you in portrait format. Now, the easy way to do that is simply to do the recording. If you're on a phone, just record it upright, so then you will get it portrait mode. If you record in landscape mode, that's okay, but then you need to allow enough free space on either side so we can crop you down and still show you. So for example, here is a little demo video of myself here. So I did this in landscape mode, and you'll see there's plenty of room on either side. So this can be cropped down and it'll still be visible. Also, let me play a little bit of this and you'll see how I start the recording and then I turn on my headset after the recording starts. So I get a few of those metronome beats. So you get the basic idea here. So another point to bring out, it's important when you do your recording to look at the camera. This may seem obvious, but people often fail to do that. They often are looking at the conductor. And if the conductor video is being played, you're playing that next to your recording device, it's going to look like you're looking off camera the whole time. So you have to work against that temptation to be looking toward the conductor or looking aside. It helps to have the playback device and the recording device right next to each other. What I do is I put them on a music stand right next to each other so I can quickly look aside at the conductor, but still keep focused on the camera. Another thing to keep in mind is look like you're enjoying yourself. I have to tell you that I get a lot of videos where people are scowling, making faces, and you just have to remember this is a hymn to the Virgin Mary. It should express adoration, and so that needs to come across. And the camera is going to, you know, it's going to pick up these things. It's close up. It's much closer than an audience is in a live concert. So you have to keep this in mind. I encourage you, after you do your recording, to look at it and make sure that it conveys the intention of the song as you think it should be conveyed. Just for fun, I've got a couple of examples of what not to do to give you an illustration here. So apologies to the people who recorded these. So here is example of looking at the conductor and not looking at the camera. So he did a great recording, but we just get a view of his neck the whole time. Here's another example. Again, keep in mind that the camera's picking you up. So here is an example where somebody is singing, they're facing the camera, but you see what they're doing in addition. So you see he's going back and forth. This was a very difficult recording to edit. There's a lot of blank space at the top of the recording of the video. We couldn't get rid of that because he was scooting back and forth. We couldn't, if we zoomed in or cropped him, we would lose him a part of the time. So stay in one place, take a deep breath, think of what you want to say, what you want to sing, and sing it, and then it should come off well. So I think those are the main points to keep in mind. I think once you've got the example recording to look at and follow, I think it's probably, we are going to be posting this session on YouTube, and I, for one, am going to go back and review it later. There's a lot of good stuff that Carl covered, and I want to make sure to cover it. Question of what kind of background for your video? Should it be neutral? It should be a background that you don't mind showing to people. Yeah, neutral is generally better, but you know, Carl's background of his wooded glen there, I think is perfectly fine. So I don't see a problem there. I think really the foreground, how you are dressing and how you're presenting yourself, I think are going to be more important. So, you know, Carl, you might want to wear a different shirt for your final recording. But otherwise, I think we're good. Oh, yes, very good point that Brock brought up. Ensure good lighting, not backlighting. If you're backlit, then you'll look like a silhouette, and that's not good. Joe Finetti pointed out ceiling fans are very distracting and should be avoided. Makes you look like a helicopter head, absolutely. And if any of you have any questions as you're going through this, feel free to reach out to Carl and myself, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. We will be, question about deadlines. The deadline will be roughly 2 weeks after we get the reference recording done. So once we've got once I've got all the trio into the reference recording, I'll let you know, and then we'll have basically 2 weekends from that point forward in order to get this done. So sorry for not being specific, but until I've got all 3 recordings, I can't give a specific date. Question came up again, landscape versus portrait. Portrait is recommended. If you use landscape, you have to leave enough space on either side of you so that we can crop you down to a portrait and not lose parts of you, okay? Question came up of earbuds versus headphones. Earbuds are preferred because they're less obtrusive, but if you want to use headphones, that is perfectly okay. And Brock made another comment of adjust phone camera to 1080p. Very good idea. We are putting this video together in 1080p format, so you might as well record that. We sometimes get videos that are recorded at low resolution, and it's noticeable even when it's put together in the ensemble. But don't use the 4K setting. That produces very big videos that just becomes too difficult for us to edit. We've got a lot. We're gonna have a lot of videos on in this project, and so anything larger than a gigabyte would be a problem. Brock, you want to unmute if there's any other points you want to bring up. Feel free to unmute and bring them up.
No, that's about it. The point about watching the camera, it's hard to do.
It is, and
you have to work at it. And we can talk about an additional. I'm not going to do it now, but there's a mitigating way of making a recording so that you can make that easier, but we can do that offline. For now, you got to practice, get those words really close to the camera lens, and look as much as you can right at that where that lens is.
Right. Let me add one thing you definitely should not do, but you will be tempted to do, is to look at your lovely image on your camera. We're all tempted to watch ourselves when we see on the camera, but your image of yourself is not where your camera is. So familiarize yourself on your phone or device. Where is the camera aperture? And focus at that.
So I just want to mention that I just purchased for about $20 on Amazon, a 5-foot stand that I intend to put over my music stand, because I'm one of these who has a hard time. I'm always looking to the side or whatever, and I'm hoping that this is going to allow me to look head on at the camera while I am, looking at the music. So we'll see how it goes.
Right.
I don't know if anyone else has had luck with anything like that.
Right. So before I want to acknowledge Bruce Lieberman, who initiated this Shen Khar Venakhi movement, if you will. Thanks for joining us. We're running at the end of our hour. I don't want to take us much longer, but I just want to respond quickly to a question from Richard Osborne about the initial clicks using wireless earbuds. Well, it depends upon the earbuds. I use wireless, so I start the clicking and then I turn on my wireless headset a few clicks in, and that's good enough. But again, if you have, there will be more details in the instructions that we send around. So any last, Carl, any last comments before we break here?
Since Bruce is here with us, I'm just curious to know, Bruce, do you actually still have that score that you got from Anzor Kapsadze?
No. Do not.
No. Do you know, did it go into the archive somewhere, or?
Depends what you mean by archive. we have no idea.
Great.
Well, maybe someone will find it someday. Well, thanks. Thanks for that.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and thank you, Carl, for a very informative workshop. I really learned a lot. I really appreciate your taking the time to do this for us.
My pleasure.
You're here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. All right. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Bravo.
Okay. Bravo.